Welcome to the Indie Author Spotlight, where we interview indie authors about upcoming releases as well as life as an author, presented to you by Books Brews and Dogs. You can visit booksbrewsanddogs.com, purchase a blind date with a book, and support animal rescue efforts. Books Brews and Dogs is where you can buy a book and save a dog or a cat. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to the first podcast, and we are here with Loren Sorensen.
Hi. Good to be back. Or good to be here.
Yeah, we did this recording once before, and the dog is interrupted, and then we recorded it with no mics. So here we are again. So as always, I am awkward on video, so I record it. I don't edit. She has been warned.
So it's just an opportunity for us to be our awkward selves.
Yeah. Right. We're just here, just being awkward because that's what we do.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason we have Loren Sorensen here is she has a novella coming out on June 5th, and we're pretty excited about this novella.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited about it too.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He brought you the cow.
Oh, thank you for the cow, big guy. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. You want to just put it right there?
You'll see lots of ears coming through.
Oh, that's a good boy.
This is Perrin sitting at our feet. It's my husky, and our city is with my husband currently. So anyways, back to the book. This is so hard to do with the dogs around.
Do you want the book?
Let's get a little closer. So The Reluctant Star is coming out on June 5th, and this is Loren Sorensen's second novella.
Yep.
And she does you do have a couple of short stories that are in anthologies.
Yes.
As well.
So this started as a novella and an anthology, which got a little expanded for this release.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And then this is your other novella, which is the prequel to a series
So this is book 1.5 in a series of 5 books. And the second book is officially their full-length novel, which is what I'm writing now.
Nice. So that one is still on my TBR, but I have read The Reluctant Star. You were nice enough to let me read it ahead of time. But the trouble with Christmas, what excites me about that one is it takes place in Austin, which is where we live.
It's an Austin romance and for Christmas in December. So you're not getting your snowed in Christmases. It's 60-degree weather Christmases with sweatshirts and, Christmas tree farms that have no snow in it and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So that's covering some of the work she's done already and a little bit of what she's got in the works, which we'll get to again later. But Reluctant Star.
Yeah. Let's talk Reluctant Star.
Yes. It is a retelling of Eros and Psyche. What inspired you to use the Eros and Psyche myth?
It started with just like I said, it was in an anthology called As Fate Would Have It, organized by Meg Stratton, who's amazing. And we decided we were going to do a gods and goddesses retelling. So I needed to sort out what kind of story I wanted to tell. And I realized that I wanted to do a happily ever after in mythology, which almost never exists. So when I was researching, Eros and Psyche was one of the first stories that came up. And when I reintroduced myself to it, I loved it. So it just pulled my attention, and I thought it was a great story to tell. So yeah, I mean, that's where I started. And then I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it in like the original Greek world. in ancient Greece, or if I was going to do a whole different thing. But as I was rereading it, I realized that Aphrodite sounded like a real housewife, and I was like, well, I'm doing this in Hollywood, because it just, the whole thing just came to me after that. I was like, after that thought, and so Aphrodite really set the tone of the story for me. And then it just kind of spiraled down from there. So it's fun. Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun recreating a Hollywood that has gods and goddesses in it. So
nice. Yeah, and it was such a fun, quick read. I mean, I read it overnight. So it was like 2 days.
yeah,
Had I started it earlier, I probably would have read it all in the same day. It's just over 200 pages.
it's
like
232.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes this is hard to tell because I had an e-version of it, so I was reading it on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the print's 232 pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then so it's just over 200 pages. So it's a pretty super fast read. Yeah. And then the story itself is just fun, which makes it an even faster read because you don't want to put it down.
Yeah.
So I just had a really great time with it, and the characters were really thought out, and you can tell.
Yeah. Character development really matters for me. So, I mean, a lot of people ask, are you plot or character driven? And I'm totally character driven. I let the characters write the story themselves, but I need to know who they are first. So I spend a lot of time cultivating those people and figuring out who they are before I really start writing. And sometimes I will write in their voice just to figure out what it is. And that's not anything that's in the story. It's just, just to get acquainted with them. So yeah, characters matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they make the book, right? It's like you can have a great plot, but if your characters aren't well built, then it doesn't really go anywhere because you don't get invested. And part of it is us being invested in these characters and making them our best friend.
Yeah.
Which is why we have book hangovers.
It is.
So this is actually a perfect little in-between for those book hangovers.
It's a nice palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Because it's fun and like it's a complete novella, but it's going to get embellished and written more for it.
And there's so much potential for that, which we'll talk about later as well. So back to the characters. Who was your favorite character to write? Or who is your favorite character after writing?
That's a really good question because I love all of them for different reasons. But Anthony had a real special place in my heart because he's representing the god of Anteros, or he's manifesting Anteros, who's the god of mutual love and reciprocation, and the avenger of unrequited love. And he was important to me because he balanced out Marlon. And he's an opportunity for people to really see that this time that Marlon says is different is actually different. So you follow their love story through his eyes. And I really loved, I fought for him really hard. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to keep him in the story when I was writing it because I knew how big the story was getting. And I had, for the original anthology, I had 50,000 words. And I was just like, I'm not sure I can keep him. So he was the one I fought for the most. But what I was going to say was, oh no, I don't.
Okay, we'll think of it later. But I'm glad that you fought for him, and I'm glad that you kept him because he is a great anecdote to kind of take that step back from being in their space, and so it kind of helps you give that broader picture with still being a character and not turning into narration. And
you don't get to see a lot with Vivian much yet, but he's an insight into her mind and her character, and you get a little bit more with her because he's with her. Actually, I was gonna say I really love Nora. I really, really love her. A lot of her, like her love for academics and just her gentle, firm, like, ability to just put people in their place. Like, I don't have zero chill when it comes to that. I don't know how to do that. So like, I admire her ability to do that. Cause I think, just, respecting the boundaries is just, that's always something that I think people struggle with. And just her knowing like her own self and what her boundaries are. Like, I love that. And so that's one of the many reasons I love her.
Yeah, she is a really great character, and I like how firm she is and how like grounded in herself she is.
Yeah.
But she does take a turn in the book where she starts letting her insecurities get to her.
Yeah.
Because Vivian's kind of a bully.
Yeah. And they have a long relationship to go. Like their relationship is pretty ugly right now, but it's going to come back full circle. Like the more that I think they spend time with each other when they manifest these trials, when they happen, Vivian's going to learn a lot about herself and Nora, and there's going to be some like bonding. They are going to come back to a better place. At least that's planned in my head for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vivian is a piece of work. And I loved writing in chapter 11, that moment when like Marlon and Vivian are unified together against Vivian. Wait, Marlon and Nora are united together. And she, like, the thought process that Nora has, like calling her out about her double standards. Like, I loved writing that section because it was just so different and it was so fun. It was a really fun chapter to write. It was hard because I had to figure out where it was going to, like, I knew where it was going to start, but I didn't know quite where it was going to end. And so Nora really fleshed out that chapter when I was writing it.
Yeah. So, and that goes to part of your process that you mentioned earlier as saying that the characters build that plot. And so you have the starting point, and as you're expanding on the characters' arc, that end point kind of changes a little bit depending on how their growth actually
absolutely
comes about. Because and I love like that you can see the growth and the humanity in each of the characters, because that's what we relate to, right? Is how human do these characters look on page? How close to those reactions that they have are real to us, or are things that we feel like that feels like a realistic reaction.
Yeah.
And so it's it really just does seem organic that they would drive that plot a little bit further.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is, as far as like writing goes, I'm what you call a planster. So I plan enough that I know where I'm going, but I let the characters take over when it's needed. So like I have a general outline of what I know is going to be the story. And I plan enough, like I do enough world building so that I know like what the world is in my head, even if no one sees it. And so I get enough of that organized, but I really like, if I'll come back if I have trouble with a section. And I'm a slow writer because I read as I write. And so because I'm a perfectionist, I want it to be right the first time, which it never is, but I can't help it.
I know the struggle, which is why I don't edit, because if I try to edit, nothing would ever get out.
Yeah.
Because I would always find something to do better or a way to do it better. So I learned that it's better for me to just allow myself the awkwardness, allow myself the bloopers, and just get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And as I do it more, I might get more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I might not. We'll find out. But at least something's getting out there.
Yeah.
And with writing, that can be so hard because a lot of people do get very judgmental with indie authors because of the spelling errors and the grammar mistakes.
You know, it's so funny before I started writing as an indie author, like 10 years ago, when Amazon really started like coming out with their indie author like publishing, I was a hardcore like judge about it. But then like I started writing and I realized like I have the autonomy to tell the story I want the way I want it. I get my covers the way I want it. And like that, you know, like neat freak, like precise like aspect of my character, like of my person is like so like not vindicated. Yeah. I'm just really glad, you know, so like, I mean, and that's not to say that if a publishing house ever wanted to take me on, I would say no, because it's hard. It's really hard, but it's fun. So you just get, as long as you get to write, that's all that matters. That's the goal.
And like, I can understand sometimes where like you might have to reread a sentence because, you know, you could see where they were going in one direction and then kind of went in another and they forgot to backtrack and erase, you know, that one word or something and it kind of throws it off. But for me, I love that that's proof that someone actually wrote the story.
Yeah.
And that's not even a dig at AI books that are meant to be, but I guess it kind of flows into that, like now that is a thing.
That's a separate conversation for another day.
But even pre that issue, because that is a more recent thing, just that somebody, you know, had the courage to put something out there and to put this story out there. And like I understand it can be so hard sometimes, but that's where like empathy comes in or perspective comes in, because I don't know anyone, even the kids that I went to school with that were straight A students. I don't know any of them that never turned in a paper that didn't have a grammar mistake or a spelling mistake.
Yeah, we all have
so we've written papers and the one you do for college. What the word?
Capstone?
No, the at the end.
Dissertation?
The dissertation. Yeah. Like I've read legal documents. Like contracts that are, you know, the ones we never read when we just say accept all and stuff. At one point I went through and read the whole thing, and there's spelling errors in that. Like we're human. We're going to make those errors, and we can get through it. And, you know, one thing that I learned from working with you, in reading the arc for the Reluctant Star and in the group that you had, is you were so open to feedback that everyone had. And so it's just understanding, like, I put out the story, I put all my love, all of my heart into this story. But it's okay to give me those constructive insights so that I know.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. You have to, as an author, you have to know what's not working, you know, because someone's going to call you out on it. So you have to address the elephant with a group of people first, and arc readers are a great place to start so that they can say, hey, this is something that can be improved upon. And I don't take it personally because I know it's going to make my book better. I want that constructive criticism. If someone finds a loophole, I need to know what it is so I can figure it out, you know, because I'm already in my head in the story. But, you know, luckily, you know, you as an author are just looking for there shouldn't be any loopholes because it's a well enough crafted piece that it's already there.
And it's easy enough to forget those, right? Because when we know what we're trying to say, and I do this to my husband all the time, I go to say something and I leave out words. And he's looking at me like, and I'm like, how did you not understand that? And he's like, I think you skipped the whole middle and just went on the beginning and the end. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. And so you know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But sometimes you forget that sentence in the middle that brings the character out in the thing that happens in their reaction. Right. And there needs to just be that sentence or two in the middle. And you know why they got there.
Yeah.
But sometimes an author might forget to tell us how they got there. Right. And so it was really interesting to see that development. And this is my first experience with an art grade. So you are my first experience with seeing an author accept that insight and be so appreciative of it. And nobody was mean or anything about it.
Not at all.
Which also is helpful because there's no judgment in that space. It's just this understanding of it takes a lot to write a book. And it takes so much courage to put yourself out there in that way. And you do such a beautiful job.
Thank you.
In doing that. And I really appreciate the stories that I've read. So I've read your short story that's in the Dark Fairytales, the Unloved. The Curse of Obsession. Yeah. And I'm so proud of myself because I'm bad with names.
Yeah.
I left notes here. Where were we?
Yes.
Okay. Favorite scene to write?
I think my favorite chapter was chapter 5. That moment when Nora learns that Marlon is a celebrity and someone that she knows, that she's seen around, and it comes kind of full circle because in the Reluctant Star, because it is based off of Eros and Psyche, the beginning of the myth for Eros and Psyche is that Psyche is so beautiful that people start praising her instead of Aphrodite. So there has to be a parallel to looks. So
that's why Vivian and Nora names.
Yes.
Bad with names.
Yes.
And Nora look alike. Because that is something that, so I got my husband to start reading the book. He's on chapter 5 right now.
Yeah.
I gave him so much crap for not finishing it before this so that we could get his input. But I think he just didn't want to be in the podcast. But because it was one of the first, he goes, is there a reason they did that?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not sure if it's the myth, if it's tied to the myth.
Yeah, it's the myth.
So I had a feeling it might have been.
Yeah.
So that was going to be on my question.
Yeah. It starts with Nora complaining about looking like Vivian Spencer, having those comparisons made to her face all the time. And I wanted to, I wanted it to stay true to the myth because, and we don't really know precisely if that is true to the actual myth. But it is true to the myth in that it honors Aphrodite finding out about Nora and getting pissed about it. Or, or Aphrodite finding out about Psyche. And while in the myth she sends Eros to Psyche, it's more of a serendipitous meet in the Reluctant Star. I could talk all day about all the different nuances about what I wanted to. I mean, a lot of it's me, but a lot of it's also the myth. So
well, it is a retelling, so it's not supposed to be an exact copy taken place in Hollywood instead.
Right.
How awkward would that be?
Super awkward. Really awkward.
Let's say ancient Greek myth and have them reenact that in modern day. Yeah. Well, I guess we have kind of one of that if you look at the Romeo and Juliet that they names DiCaprio did.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
I think I was in junior high when they did that.
Baz Luhrmann. That was his first movie.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was his second movie because Strictly Ballroom was his first one, which is also really, really good. Kind of wild, but yeah. Anyway,
but it was like weird to see that and hear all that old English.
I loved that convergence of like old world meets new. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I liked the idea of doing a contemporary setting, because you can still honor the original story just in a new setting.
Okay, so completely off topic and about to plug another book. Have you read The Games Gods Play?
No.
Okay, you have to read The Game Gods Play. I think book 2 is, I want to say it's October that it's coming out, but it might have pushed to, when the Moon Hatched book 2 pushed to February. So book 2 is supposed to be coming out. I already have it on pre-order.
For When the Moon Hatched, is that book 2?
Book 2, I think it got pushed to February of next year.
Okay.
Because it was originally supposed to be October. And but when The Games Gods Play, so if you go to the blue with the next blue, that one. This is the book I'm talking about. So good. Greek mythology, but more than just Greek mythology, because it's got all the gods in it. You can just leave it down. We'll make it not a focus because we need to get back to your book. But it's a great like modern day with inclusion of the ancient gods. And fun. Each god like rules their own city. That's so cool. It's great, but I'm gonna stop talking about it because like this is the third time I've done this to you. I'm so sorry. Okay. Reluctant Star. Let's go back. We need to do one where we just talk books that we've read, and so we can get this out of our system.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that.
So
for sure.
So Reluctant Star. Your favorite scene was
So my favorite scene is with Nora looking like Vivian, with her acknowledgement of Marlon, like she likes him, like she knows that she likes his acting, and then like taking the man that became her superhero and converging them into one person. That moment for me was just really, really fun. I loved writing that scene. I had a blast writing it. And it's one of my favorite, like, there's just, sometimes there are quotes and words that stick with you. And So Long As You Keep Me and My Name is one of my favorite things that I wrote. It comes back all the time. So there's a little snippet coming soon on Instagram. And so Zach and
by the time they see this, it'll probably be out.
Yeah, it's already out. But so there should be a snippet of that scene played out with fellow AML survivors.
Nice. Yeah. So we are recording this 4 days before the book actually releases, but I'm holding this for exactly 1 week to give you time because there are spoilers in this.
Yeah.
So we'll put snippets of this out and teasers of this out that they'll see. But we're talking about the book. We need to give people a little bit of time to get their pre-orders and things like that. So,
that scene when they meet and they choose each other again. I love that scene. I loved writing the date. That took so long, but I loved writing the date. Originally, it was one chapter, and I had to break it up. And shifting it into Nora's point of view was also something that changed. But just like it's one of those moments where like you find your people. And like they have a little food fight in like a really like nice fancy restaurant. Like, and I, like it's a moment.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's
it's like
fun.
That moment of banter. Like it just like, it's a feel good moment. And I love writing those because people want to feel happy when they read, you know. And then I'm also not opposed to like smacking it down with reality because I mean, to me, realistic, like grand sweeping love, like it's all part of what makes romance so fascinating. Like you gotta have something grounding with those like heart flutters that make you go,
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to feel the if it's always just there, because then it's just there, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to have something that kind of brings you down to make you go back up.
Yeah.
Right. You can't have the daylight without having nighttime and vice versa. Like they otherwise it's just there. And so it's you do a really good job of that also. I think my favorite scene is at the luncheon with Vivian when Nora was just like, no.
Yeah.
And that's when you see like she wasn't afraid to stand up to Vivian, but it also shows how like even though she had her boundaries and everything was set in place, she further in the book you see her insecurities come out and she kind of falls prey to Vivian. Right. And that is very relatable because we can be so confident in one situation and then something very emotional happens and we lose our confidence and we lose our trust in ourselves because we're not sure what happened or what went wrong and we haven't had the opportunity to resolve it. And Vivian really took advantage of that with Nora in the book.
Yeah.
Which is how she winds up in the 3 trials, which is a pull from the myth.
Yeah.
So I really liked how that brings out her humanity, and she's not just this constantly strong-willed, because we're not all the time. Like we have our moments of weaknesses too.
Oh, there was also a scene in chapter 3, like the moment when like Nora's reflecting on how people have used her for her beauty and how she's always worked to keep herself, she's kept herself together. That was one of those moments where I wrote it and it was like solid gold. Like I wasn't crying when I wrote it, but I was definitely emotional when I wrote it. And that was that scene almost didn't get touched. Like I didn't need to edit anything because it was just written in a purely inspired moment. And that, speaking to what you're saying, she is confident but she has her insecurities. She just masks it well. And I think the breakdown of Nora's insecurity comes down to the conflict with Marlon, but also people like her sisters also kind of jumping in on her too. So in the original myth, her sisters are jealous of the life that she has living with a god. And they're like, how do you know that he's not actually a monster? And like, they like set the stone for like her to fail. And then and that's what sets her on the trials and the myth. And so I totally went back into that with texting with the sisters and them ganging up on her. And that was kind of fun to write too, because I was just like, how catty can I get these sisters?
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was really fun.
I mean, you can tell that you enjoyed writing the book and that you really had fun with the story because it's fun to read and that really comes through. And there's so many great little scenes and anecdotes and you can tell you researched the myth really well and tied them in together.
Yeah.
And it's just fun.
I'm never going to do any sort of lazy writing. Like if I'm going to do a job, I'm going to do it well. And maybe it's just the academic in me. I can't help it. Like I'm always going to research it. And like,
is that why you chose Nora and Anthony to be academics?
How did that happen?
Because even Marlon technically
he's an academic too. Yeah, I mean, well, he's an academic too.
Right.
And that's something that I like about Marlon. I love that he's smarter than he looks, and he doesn't like he doesn't flaunt it, but he also like does, like I feel the same way for Nora feels about his intelligence. Because and I wanted him to be smart. I wanted a celebrity to be exactly who he was. And to me, he was a smart academic who just happened to be better at acting. But no, why did I choose academics for them? How did that happen? I don't remember how that happened. It just felt right. It was just, but I did choose Aaron, the father, to be a military tactician because he's based off of Aries.
Yeah.
And so I think it might, like, at least for Anthony, it started with Aaron because he was an academic. And so it made sense that that Anthony would be an academic.
Well, as a peacekeeper, it kind of makes sense because you'd have to have a lot of knowledge and they're psych majors.
Yeah. I'm not a psych major. I did a lot of research on UCLA, and I did a lot of research on I got their syllabus and for their PhD grad program, I was reading through their manuscript.
Oh my gosh.
And the number that I reference when Sammy tells her I got this done for class, whatever, is an actual class number at UCLA.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
So, because I'm a nerd, and
yeah. But what a great little Easter egg for anyone who's been
at UCLA
in the psych department that happens to pick up the book or knows someone or
right.
Yeah.
So, no, I like doing things well, so I'm always going to make sure that I do the best research I can, and that's partly why book 2 has been delayed, because there's some elements to that story that are. It's going to get told and it will be done well, but I have to do a lot of research with it. So
I can imagine that takes up a lot of time, which segues us into the next question.
Okay.
You're not a single mom. What the hell did that come from? You're very happily married, to my understanding.
Yes.
What the heck?
Yep. Married to mom.
You're married, and you have a single child. Maybe that's where I was going with that. You have a single child, but you also have lots of fur babies. I think you mentioned
2 dogs and a cat.
Yeah, so 3. And then a husband. So maybe you do have 2 children. Is anything like mine? Just kidding. So, but you also work part-time. Full-time. Sorry. And then you're writing. That is a lot. That's that feels like superhuman ability. Because I remember I wrote a single article in some anecdotal self-published magazine about tarot, and the research and the time that I put into the origins of tarot and how that works to then submit to that magazine. And we're talking a 1.5 page article. And it took me a month.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what writing.
It's whenever I get a chance. It's, at night before, since I work in retail hours are open later in the morning. So I get a little bit of space there. Sometimes it's writing with the kiddo in front of me. If he's watching something on his iPad and I'm typing away, or editing or making social media content, I'm doing that with him. So I think the balance has not been figured out yet, but it's a constant work. I'm always trying to find the right balance. But yeah, I write when I write, whenever I get a chance. So sometimes when the words come, I can write 10,000 words in a week, and that's really, it's in bursts. It's in bursts when that happens. But I can't write if the characters aren't talking to me. So um, yeah, I need the characters too.
Yeah.
So I'll when I want to start writing, I'll reread what I've written because I like knowing where I went, and so I know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just very helpful. And then I'll start fine tuning that. So I really getting the process really is I need to get more done for new stuff. So I have to learn how to stop revising as I write because I just need to write it done because I can't have a book finished if it's not complete. So
Yeah.
I'm working on that.
It's hard not to revise as you go.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you have to stop and take breaks when you don't necessarily want to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've probably run into the problem where you're in the flow, but time constraints,
Yeah.
you know, where you have to go, I have to stop because I have to go to work. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that is just a struggle of of a lot of indie authors. You know, I follow a lot on social media. This is my stack of indie author books that I have on hand. And we have more on our audio account. But, you know, so I follow a lot of these indie authors in their social media accounts. And it's the biggest struggle that a lot of you guys have is because you're not with a trad publisher, you're writing these stories in between your life. Yeah. Like this isn't your page job. Mm-mm. Not everybody gets to be Stephen King.
Nope. Nope. Or Sarah J. Maas.
Or Rebecca Yarros, or you know, where it just so you're writing these stories, which also feeds into why, you know, that you don't have the affordability of editors. You don't have
everything
all the time.
Yeah, I pay for everything.
So because it's all individual, and then you have to pay to promote and publish and get it out there and push and hope that you make that money back. You know,
I haven't yet.
At least, if at least you know, to break even, and that can be so difficult because it just, you know, because you can't find your books on the shelf at these big bookstores.
No, but if you publish through Ingram Spark, that's where most people buy their books. So like you can, I need to update The Trouble with Christmas on Ingram Spark, and I need to get the Reluctant Star up on there because that's where booksellers usually get their books. So like you can call a book like Barnes and Noble. Like I can call the Arboretum and say, hey, I have a book. Would you guys be interested in carrying a local author? And then, you know, that's a way to get started. Actually, I did that initially with Book People and The Trouble with Christmas when I first published it. It fell through because I fell through. But yeah, I mean, there are little things that you can do, but it always feels like you're researching and always like trying to stay on top of it. It's there's always something that I should be doing that I don't know what I'm doing.
That's how I feel with social media, I swear. Like why did I do this again? Why did I start things? Like what am I doing? What?
Yeah.
I still haven't even figured out TikTok, so
let's not talk about TikTok because we aren't friends either. So
yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah,
my age is showing. So we already kind of talked about Anthony giving that third view and kind of tying in and essentially giving a personal perspective where a narrator would have stepped in. So that continues the book to be more character driven. But what was it that inspired creating that instead of using basic narration?
There's a couple of things. So one, Anthony is sort of if you read The Trouble with Christmas, there's a character named Chris who kind of steps in and like encourages Caleb to give it a chance again with Ryan to see if she might change her mind. And all he says is, all you have to do is just ask, just try, just see what happens. And so like he kind of pushes the edge a little. And then in Love in Plain Sight, which is not published, but I have 100,000 words written in it. There's another character called Richard, who kind of does, he was the original. But he perpetuates the romance too, just by simply recognizing the situation and honoring it and saying like, hey, I'm going to let these two people sit next to each other on the plane and let's see what happens. So that's a stylistic thing that I've started like with these series, at least with these books. That's just something that I've done because I like the idea of people paying it forward, you know, and just giving people an opportunity to see what happens when you take the risk on a stranger, because there can be kindness, and we need to honor that. It's important to me. So that's one thing. The other thing about Anthony is that he is like I said, he's representing Anteros, and I read an article when I was researching that someone said, if you have Anteros and you have Eros together, with Anteros being the god of mutual love and Eros being the god of sexual desire and love, they balance out love and create a holistic version of what that is. And that really stuck with me. And that I wanted to keep Anthony in that because it doesn't qualify, but it gives faith into Marlon and the change that he has with Nora. And so I really love the idea of giving Marlon credibility through someone who's known him his whole life, you know, who's watching his brother fall in love for the first time. And that was really fun. And then there was something else I was going to say. Go ahead, because I don't know.
It's okay. So with Anteros, in some of the myths, he's brothers with Eros, but in others, isn't he an enemy?
Yes.
And so why did you choose to use brothers instead of an enemy?
Because Aphrodite had such a big role in the Reluctant Star. I like the idea of them being a family because in the version where they're brothers, it's Ares, Aphrodite, Anteros, and Eros. But I learned also after this was written that Anteros was created, in one version, he was created by the love of Neretes and Poseidon, which is really interesting. And that's a story in the As Fate Would Have It anthology. One of the authors did a contemporary streetcar drag race retelling with Neretes and Poseidon.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's very, very smutty. It's definitely the raciest.
Well, it is Poseidon.
Yeah. It's Poseidon.
And I mean, the Greeks are that way anyways, which kind of leads me into the next thing I want to talk about, because I feel, especially with this releasing in June, and June being Pride Month, Marlon is definitely bisexual.
Yep.
And while it's brought up in the book, it's not made a point to bring it up. It's just in the background as if that's normal in everyday life. And I love that because it's referenced, you know, you have the tabloids talking about his lovers, and, you know, it talks about the musician he was with. And this musician was very clearly also male, you know, and the pronouns for both are he, but nobody in the stories or the books or the tabloids questions it or goes, oh my God, did you know? Or, you know, that there's that back and forth. And so one, that's how it should be.
Yes, absolutely.
And two, in ancient Greece, that's how it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that mindset, I just approached it that way because I study Greek mythology, and I know, homosexuality was a big part of the identity and Greek culture. And
especially in the military.
yeah, yeah.
It was encouraged.
Yeah.
In the military.
And, there's, some of the best love poems are men writing about men. I didn't even I didn't think about it because, I'm an idealist and a romantic, and you put those two things together and I'm going to create a world that should be what it is.
And it feels so natural.
Yeah.
And just so well done. And that isn't something that you see in coming out of books, at least in my experience. I'm sure that there's other authors out there who, aren't necessarily in the LGBTQ plus community outside of being porters, that can really just get that into the flow of writing so naturally, because a lot of times they feel a need to kind of point out that they did it.
Yeah. I don't like talking about it because I don't want to make it a deal.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the world that he's bi. And he also is the representation for Eros. And Eros is the god of love and sexual desire. So obviously he's bi.
Yeah. Why wouldn't he?
Why wouldn't he be? Yeah.
But, so, and it's something that, I really love seeing in the books, and something that I do notice when I'm reading, I read books from all over the spectrum of humanity. And it's just because we're in June and because we are in Pride Month, I just really wanted to point out
absolutely
that supporter.
Yes.
Supporter.
Proud supporter. I'm proud. I mean, happy to be an ally. I have a lot of friends that are LGBT or trans.
Thank you for saying ally, because I could not find that word. You're welcome. It wasn't in my brain.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, and this is maybe a sidetrack that I shouldn't go on, but I will. In my muggle job, I work as a bra fitter. And I do meet trans women, and it's a very vulnerable time, and I work with them just the way that you're supposed to.
What an amazing thing to be able to do for them, though.
Yeah.
It's and for them to be able to have someone who just treats them like being human.
It's a terrifying experience for them to ask to be fit. And you have to go into this knowing that they just want to be themselves. And so you have to give them the space to do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm so glad that they have you.
Yeah.
Because it can be so hard.
Yeah.
But, it's so amazing. And I love that, how accepting it is, where it's just so natural in your world and in your space.
And I think that's also a testament to my parents, who are very active in the gay and LGBT community. My dad lived in San Francisco for years with his work because that's he had to commute, and so that inclusivity was just always there. That came from my parents, who are also amazing people, just really kind and accepting people. And they taught me to do that and to be that way. And so there was never a question of inclusivity. And I want, like I said, I want to do things well. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to make sure that I'm honoring people the best way that I can.
Yeah.
And it's just, and with all my friends and with people that I know personally, I've learned a lot, and I've, I transitioned, I've taken those relationships, and I've, just kind of absorbed it and let it be what it is. And
yeah. And I love it because it's not a big deal in the book.
No.
It's literally, I think, like 2 or 3 sentences where it's mentioned in the tabloid setting.
And his agent is like, who are you, Twitter Pitter?
Who he, she,
yeah.
Yeah. And so it kind of gets brought up twice.
Yeah.
But it just moves on. And it's so accepting, and there's no other anecdotes because it just is.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that it just is mentioned like twice and moved on, and nobody else or any narration about it or any pointing out of it is just why it works so well. And you don't even, because I had read it and then I got probably to the 3 or 4 pages later, and then my brain went, wait a second, did I really just read that?
Yeah.
Like, because it was so natural.
Yeah.
That my brain didn't even, and it just, like, it took a second for my brain to go, wait, she did? You know, like,
yeah,
because it was so natural, it like didn't even register that anything was different or anything was like, and that is so important.
Maybe I'm just trying to manifest that normality into reality.
I hope we get there.
Me too. I really hope we get there. And love is love is love is love is love is love. It's just love. So, I mean, I think I did intentionally not make a big deal out of it because Marlon is bi. That's all there is to it. That was the first thing that I identified when I was like, okay, who's Marlon? I was like, he's the god of love and sexual desire. Oh yeah, he's totally bi. That was like literally my thought process when I was creating him. And I always knew that. And I want to maybe just, hopefully we're just manifesting this to become what the world should be.
And I think the more often it appears in books as just normal, the closer we'll get. I know we're going through a lot of struggles with all the things happening at this moment in time, but our words, that's resistance. And that's showing our strength and our acceptance and pushing it out there and just letting everyone know that, we are here and we do care about you. And it's just really beautiful. And so
with authors that are commenting on their writing as they, try to get points, like, I don't see the point in doing that. Like, it's not beneficial to me, and it feels crass, and it feels, I mean, it feels like you're like, hey, look at me. I'm an ally. Like, you can still, you don't have to do it. You can just be an ally and be there and be supportive and just do the work and, without trying to get the brownie points. I don't need the brownie points because I'm friends with everyone, and it doesn't matter. I don't want to draw that attention to myself in that way. If I made my post today, about Marlon, and I almost didn't do it because I didn't want to draw attention to it, but I did because of our conversation that we had last week when we were talking about this.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, maybe it's worth showing,
and I think it is. I think I loved when I saw that post this morning. It made me smile, and I was like, oh, because I think that it is important that they know that even non-LGBT plus community knows that it's there. It's in the books, and it's in, not because this isn't a specific LGBT book. It's not. It is it's not a Rebecca Thorne book where the main characters are. He winds up in a cis relationship.
Yeah.
And so it's just, but the fact that it's brought up and it's mentioned and, it's a side note, but not really because it's a side note that gives insight into his character.
Yeah.
So
this is an example of telling, not showing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
sorry, show, don't tell. It's an example of showing, not telling.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, right? As an author, is to always make sure that you're showing your craft and not telling. Because when you point it out, that's telling.
Yeah. So, and what I've come across a lot in books is they use other characters to point it out. So they do it in the conversation to make it more of a see what I just said, or to make it the bigger deal, and not necessarily in the narration, but it feels like this weird forced conversation.
Yeah.
And usually the only time you can get, where everything feels natural is when you have an actual writer who is a part of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
But a lot of cis writers who are kind of trying to bring that in, you can see their struggle. And so the more it gets put out there, I think the better that will become. And I don't think they're doing it intentionally.
Sure.
Or, some of them might be trying to do brownie points with it. Some of them may not. So I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot about it, but it just is something as a reader that you kind of notice. And when those conversations and stuff feel forced, it pulls you from that story.
I have a lot of friends that I have a friend, TJ, who lives in England, that did the As Fate Would Have It anthology with me. Hi, TJ, I love you. And he's gay, and he and his boyfriend, he talks to me about his boyfriend, but we also talk about writing and representing, gay relationships. And I told him, I don't want any character that I write that is on the spectrum, gay, lesbian, whatever. I don't want to force the fact, because that's it's who they are. So that's, you can still, I want to build on the relationship rather than the status of what the relationship is, or like the title, it's a bi awakening or whatever. I don't want to focus on the bi awakening. I want to focus on the relationship. Yeah. And so, that's something that he and I have talked about endlessly. And I think that's also given credit, because his insight is just really helpful to me, and making sure that I'm doing the job right. So, yeah.
But that's amazing. It's awesome. And just thank you. Yeah. For standing with us and being an ally.
Absolutely. There's also room in the Reluctant Star to explore what Marlon does when things fall apart. And I was thinking about tapping more into that aspect of him being bi, and either going to a club or just
because he disappears for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does he do during that 2 weeks?
So I mean, there was some thought that I had when I was writing it, where we see more of that part of his life that I haven't fully fleshed out yet, but it's something that is on the table to develop it for the full-length novel.
I am so excited that you're working on a full-length novel for this, even though it might be a long time coming because time constraints, and
I'm hoping to get book 2 and the full-length novel out by next April.
Yay. That's not that far away.
No, it's not.
I believe in you.
Wishful thinking and hopeful, actual, structured, dedication to writing both. I have to put both hats on. But there's an exciting reason that people will find out about why later this week. So stay tuned for Instagram, because there's an exciting news I can't share yet. Can't tell anyone.
I know.
I know. Sorry, I can't tell you
so
yet.
mean.
I know. So you're just gonna have to hang out.
Are they gonna know before this comes out on the 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll know.
So I'm sitting in attitude, but you all will know.
Yeah.
Or have the ability to know.
So the goal is to get those books done.
Okay.
Because
well, you're excited about this clearly, so I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Even though I have no idea what's going on, I can see the excitement in your face.
Yeah.
And that was our other question is, what do you have in the works? And so you have these full-length novellas.
Adaptation, really fleshing out the Reluctant Star into a full-length novel so that people can really get those trials, get all of the relationships, like really looking forward to fleshing out Vivian as a character because she's not me. Like I'm a very nice person and
she is not.
And so tapping into those motivations, tapping into like getting into her head, you know, I don't know if I'm going to keep it in the same narrative, but maybe Vivian gets a few chapters, which would be really fun. I just thought about that. That would be really fun to do that. Really fleshing out her relationship with Nora, getting those in between moments. Paris is only 2 chapters in here. It was originally planned in my head for 5 or 6, where you can really see them like truly like pick each other and fall in love and like see the sights in Paris and, you know, get those more like the like more excitable like moments when they, you know, are like truly falling in love. So like when you get the newspaper article, you really get the whole story. So yeah, I have plans. I have so many plans. I'm so excited.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So was there a specific reason that you chose Paris as the date? Or was it just because that's so well known as the city of love, so it kind of made it easy?
Yeah, it was an easy place to pick because it is a city of love. But I in the story I reference, people say you should come to Paris in the spring. But I love the idea of being there in the fall. And I was in Paris in the spring. So I loved being in Paris in April. It was beautiful. But I don't know. I wanted someplace romantic and exotic, you know, for someone that spends her whole day working on her PhD. You know, I think when you are a student and you just want to get away, you know, you have to pick somewhere, and Paris is just, you know, can pick it out and just go. You know?
I'm so weird because I think of I want to get away, and the first place I think is Czech Republic.
Oh, well, yeah, that would be amazing.
So do you want to know why?
Yes.
As the oldest library in the world.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. I just want to go so I could go and walk around the oldest library in the world.
Yep. I mean, well, the architecture.
So it's like my number one place that I want to go.
Top on my list of places is New Zealand.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
And the Maldives. Which,
there's so many pretty places in this world.
I know.
And I'm like, put me in a library.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that too. I don't talk about Alexandria because I'm going to cry, you know, because the library, rest in peace.
Silent moment. I'm going to leave a library. Can we just stay in one forever?
Yeah. When I was in college, I did all of my work in the library. I had a desk in my room, but I never it was just for putting my books down. Like I'd much rather be in the library reading
every time.
And when I would get when I would try to figure out how to write something or work on my papers or whatever, I'd go explore the stacks and it's a Harry Potter fan fiction that I wrote where one of my characters says that. It's my Rose. My Rose does that. So
nice.
That's a fun story. That's a side note.
I'm I'm gonna have to see this story now.
So that was one of the stories that helped me really get back into writing again as an adult.
Nice.
And so it's a second generation romance, and it's Scorpius and Rose, and it's an academic book. It's an academic, like, forced proximity.
Oh, nice.
Super fun.
Yeah. So when did you start writing?
Oh, I started writing in middle school, probably around 13, 12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was writing poetry on one of the old white Macs. And I just saw her typing, and I was, oh, that's an interesting idea. And then, so I always give her credit for getting me interested in it, because I was watching her type on there. And my first really terrible, awful, god awful romance that I wrote, I should have known I was going to be a romance author because I was writing romance when I was in like 13. It was a story about a boy and a girl both named Loren falling in love, and it was so dumb, so bad, so obvious. But I mean, I don't know. I liked the idea of those like androgynous names. It's also why Marlon's first name is Ashley, because I always like those androgynous names.
I love that he also hates that name.
Yeah. Well, he comes to hate it with the way that Vivian's trying to use it against him. Yeah. And how she kind of tries to claim that, like, that's that relationship with him by using that name. And it's an interesting, I love the play on names and like the importance. Mm-hmm. That wasn't something that I intended on doing. It wasn't a first idea, but as I developed the idea, I really enjoyed it.
And it's a great way, because what it made me think of, and my love of Bridgerton's probably going to show here, is when you look at that era, right, mm-hmm. and the formalities there, but even I guess my love of anime too. So you look at anything in like the Victorian era, and then you look at any anime, mm-hmm. names are important. Mm-hmm. And let's not even talk about the world of Fae.
Yeah.
Where don't totally give the Fae your name.
Yeah, absolutely.
So names are always important, but like you have to, like in Victorian era, you had to be given permission to use the Christian name, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. Otherwise, everything was always lady,
yes,
last name, mm-hmm. right? And you had to have a certain amount of time, mm-hmm. before you were allowed to use the Christian name.
Yeah.
And in Japanese culture, that you see through the animes that they do, because I've never been to Japan, so I've known a few foreign exchange students. The names are very important, and you're given certain phrasings that you have to use depending on how well you know the person. So do you know them through being coworkers? Do you know them through being living in the same space? Do you know them as a friend? And those change in development, but they also change depending on who you're introducing them to and why. Mm-hmm. And so it feels so natural that the name becomes such a big deal. And it is like Marlon has to earn the right
to
use Nora's nickname.
Yeah. And he I don't think he's ever wanted to give Ash to anyone except Nora.
And he like immediately gives it to her. And she's like, no.
Yeah. I'll earn it. And when she does say it, it is in a moment of true like love and passion. And so like it feels more authentic when she gives it back to him and she calls him Ash. Because you know, it's earned. And I think for Nora, you know, she's willing to do the work it takes to make something successful. And Marlon is learning how to do that. with her. He's learning how to like take time to really be with someone
and
because
actually put in effort instead of people just saying, well, I'm with Marlon Spencer. So
and she's good for him because she helps him backpedal and think and go, oh yeah, no, I actually, this is what I want. So yeah, I love that. I love what they do for each other. I love how they complement each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do work really well together. So what potential is there for Anthony and Marlon, like learning more about their relationship and their dynamic? Because Anthony is the younger brother, but he is Marlon's caretaker. And in all of the stories, it's almost always the opposite, where it's the older sibling is the caretaker, and the one, we have the older sibling complex that was the caretaker for the younger siblings. But there are a lot of families, and I've known families that have younger siblings that were the caretakers for the older siblings, because the older siblings got babied and went through, and the younger one could sometimes be like more independent because the older sibling was catered to more at first, and then the younger one came unexpectedly. And they're like, oh, they can take care of themselves, but habits have already been formed for that older.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's the case for Marlon and Anthony, but I do think, so I am a younger sibling that helps. I wasn't necessarily taking care of my older sister, but emotionally, like I've always been there and more solid. So, in that way, Anthony and I are the same. But there's definitely room for growth there. I think in chapter 9, no, it's chapter 12, whichever chapter it is, like when Marlon moves in, like, oh no, it's when in Anthony's reflection when he talks about being able to, he's seen Marlon more when he moves in with Nora than he has like in months at a time. There's room there to grow, to flesh out that relationship. Where, like Marlon and Anthony are talking about his classes and his academics, and like, really like Marlon being the brother that he was always supposed to be.
Yeah.
So there's definitely room there.
There's definitely like where you see how close they are, like you get a really good sense that they're very tight knit. But you don't see a lot of that relationship except for when Anthony goes to pester him because he's been not getting out of bed.
And the lunch too.
Yeah.
No, I would love to flesh that out too. I love Anthony as a character. I've already had readers ask me for his story, so I've started plotting that out. And I don't know if there's a myth. There is. The reason I was researching Anteros was because I was trying to find out if there was like a love story myth for him similar to what you find for other gods, and there isn't really. Like the fact that he was in one version created as the byproduct of Poseidon's love with Neretes was fascinating, but that doesn't answer the question of who is Anteros as a partner, or who is he as someone that falls in love. So there's a few ways to play with it. So it's going to be mostly me, but it would be fun. I am going to have some fun, like researching other myths that might be fun to adapt into if I do want to do that. So
yeah. And George, my editor baby. Hi, buddy.
Hi.
He's shorter. You can't.
Hello.
Oh, there's his
nose. Hi.
Hi.
All right. Uh-oh. Yeah. You see your puppy getting. All right. Looks like he wants to.
He's afraid he's going to knock the camera. Yeah. So Perrin's on the couch behind the camera. Oh, good job, buddy.
Good job, big guy. Good job, big guy. Yes. Good job.
Let's take toys off the floor since there's only one out here. I guess that was him barking to I haven't seen mom. I hear mom, but I haven't seen mom. So I didn't get a lot of sleep last night because I had to go do an event. And then, so I got home really late. And so I ended up taking a nap right before you got here. And apparently during my hour nap, they just sat in front of the door and whined because they weren't allowed in the room because then they would have not let me nap.
Yeah.
But
Children.
so right after an hour, he comes back. He goes, just so you know, they just sat there the whole time. But Murphy gets scared about noises. And when we started this, there was a car alarm going off outside. And so his little barkings, if you can hear them through the mics, I don't know, but he's been kind of making barking noises and stuff. And it's because this car alarm randomly keeps going off outside. And then the barky dogs next door set him off too. So I'm pretty sure you can't hear those, but you might be able to hear that just happened. Those are responses to loud noises, but he was rescued. We rescued him 2 years ago, and he was abused by the owner's child. And so he's coming a long way, but there's still things that scare him. That he's scared of the dark, and it's adorable because when it's time to go to bed, he will sit at the door and wait until you get in there to turn the light on. So he won't go into a dark space unless you're with him.
That's so cute.
So we have to take a flashlight on the nighttime walks because he's like, I don't want to be out there. It gets dark.
That is so cute.
It's really adorable.
You are
so
cute too.
Funny. And this one is a broken husky. I have a husky.
He's a cat.
He hasn't made a single sound this entire time.
Are you really a cat dressed up as a dog?
Being seriously judged right now.
Yep. If we could angle this down, it would be funny to see his face.
Hi, buddy. Yes, I love you. I love you. Can I have a kiss? No. Every time. You kissed her. He's like, and your point? Oh, so is there anything else? I think we covered everything.
I think so.
No, we didn't. Oh, you have to see these chapter. They're so beautiful. Okay. So
I formatted everything in vellum.
Yeah. So this is the cover, and it's just gorgeous, and it really does read Hollywood star. Like, I see this and I think like that 1920s, 1930s Hollywood star.
I was thinking 50s with the big hat and the neckline.
I guess that does make more sense. I'm horrible. Timelines. That's probably why I don't write books. So let's get to a chat. Like, look at how beautiful that is. And I love that it ties into Eros with the bow and arrow, and it ties that part of the myth in, as well as the name of the coffee shop.
Yep. And coffee.
When they curse, so to speak, it's like, oh, fates. And so you have those small little Easter egg tie-ins back to the original myth and the gods that they are. And so these are so fun to read too. And this is the tabloids. So there's like whole page little tabloid.
That tabloid in particular. We were talking about the tabloid not commenting on Marlon's bisexuality, and but they are very passive aggressive. And they're, like, we can only hope that we can afford to go to Paris for a weekend one day, just.
Oh yeah, and this one.
Yeah. So Hollywood Tribunal is kind of like that TMZ newspaper, and then the Los Angeles Herald is like the LA Times, and then
but I mean, what news outlet isn't snarky about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, but I wanted the comment. I wanted the backhanded commenting and stuff like that. Like I wanted that in the newspaper articles.
And then these are also fun to read. So a couple of times throughout the book, you get the little conversations that they have. And so these are like the interludes that kind of help tie in the going from chapter to chapter and that time skip of like, here's what happened in between.
Yeah.
And they're fun.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes it so fun to read is because you turn the page and you're like, oh, tabloid.
That's what I was going to say. Okay. So the other thing with Anthony's point of view, the reason that there's so many narratives is because one of the things I did in high school, one of my teachers had us do a multimedia creative writing assignment where we had multiple ways to tell the story. So I got as I was a junior in high school, I got crazy excited about this project. And my writing partner was Andy. He was a great friend. And he wrote 5 or 6 pieces. I wrote 17.
Wow.
I got so excited. And so it felt very natural to write The Reluctant Star with multiple point of views because I could see the larger story being told through multiple narratives. So that's why I wanted to do it. Because I have a blast. And it's as a writer, it's very stimulating and challenging to come up with multiple ways to tell the story. And with it being in Hollywood, it just lent itself to the tabloids. And then with the myth, the way that Eros and Psyche fall in love at night, when they're talking or being together, they don't see each other. And so that lent itself to texting. And I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get that part of the myth in. And then I was like, oh yeah, duh, texting. And then because it is a retelling of a myth, I wanted the actual story through Marlon and Nora to be third person past. And that's partly why Anthony is first person present, because he's keeping you present with him as he watches his brother fall in love. So yeah, that's why I have all those narratives.
Nice. Yeah. And it's so fun because it is an interesting way to do it, because just about every book that has ever been written has narration. Like you have to understand what's going on behind the characters, but the majority of your narration is done through a character's perspective, as opposed to having the narration chapters or the narration added into the chapters. You have a lot of character interaction and then Anthony reflecting on what happened as the narration. And so it's his character, like it's still a character.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really interesting way to do the narration that makes it fun, and it makes it different.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you see. In fact, I don't know that I've ever seen that elsewhere. Like there's obviously books that have this character's point of view, that character's point of view, but there's always a lot of narration in between, or and stuff that happens there. And like one of the biggest ones I can think of right now that does a lot of character points of view is Wheel of Time. Right. So I don't know if you've actually read the series.
No.
Oh, it's so good. We couldn't watch the show because they just changed the main characters too much. The show in and of its own right would be a great show if you weren't fully divested in the books prior to.
I feel that way about the ending of Game of Thrones. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. It's easy to do.
Yeah.
We've done it a lot.
Yeah.
But there's so many. You have like the main character, but then you have 4 other characters that are also main characters. And so you have their perspectives. And so in The Reluctant Star, Marlon and Nora, like Nora, I see Nora the main character, and Marlon is the counterpoint to that main character. But Anthony and Vivian are also brought up to that, they're like second main characters, if you will.
Secondary. Yeah, secondary.
Yeah, because they're just as vital and just as important to the story. Mm-hmm. And they have their own arcs. And so having all that perspective from all their point of views, but using a character as the narration instead of having those long narrations.
Picks a story up. I mean, yeah, I feel like when you, for me, just writing a story, like the characters, I've said this again, but the characters are what drive the story for me every time. And so, coming together, like knowing what the whole story is as a writer, like just knowing the whole arc of the story. And then, sometimes different narration, like different parts get changed. Like, so, the date, it was all going to be from Marlon's point of view. And then when I realized it was like 10,000 words or something like that, I was like, I should probably adjust that. And then and then Nora became the second part of the date narration. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes characters have better insight into knowing what's really happening. So jumping through different characters' point of view, like really helps push the story forward.
Yeah. So instead of having that overlooking, you have somebody that's emotionally involved with these characters, explaining what's happening. And it's really unique, and it really did help kind of push the story and help you feel connected to the characters, because you are very plot driven. And because this is a contemporary that takes place in places we know, there is detail where it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
But the backgrounds in the spaces aren't super detailed. Like, you're not going into Anne Rice's, 2-page detail about the curtains, but sorry, it's okay. I love Anne Rice's stories, but they can be a glog to get through sometimes because of how detailed she is. Which isn't a bad thing, but it can make it, you have to be prepared for
and
that.
Also remember with this, and as the original novella, I didn't have the space to do that. I only had a cap at this amount of words. And there's a little bit more, there's about 7,000 more words in this version with chapter 13. And I wasn't always planning to write that out, but I was like, it might be nice just to give readers ahead of, like, before, to have something new to enjoy, and experience it again. But for new readers altogether, I wanted to make sure that I had enough of the arc of the story, because I know what the gaps are, and I didn't know personally if I was going to like the novella as it was. I didn't. Well, and when I say that, I just say, like, I knew what was missing, and I didn't want that to feel like a heavy loss for the reader. So I added that chapter to give you more ideas of what to expect as I write. So, like, it's so that and I was very aware. The Reluctant Star is clearly Nora, but the Reluctant Star can also be other people. And I, my editor commented to me, she was like, Nora doesn't seem very reluctant. And I caught onto that. And so I've been cognizant of that. And I just want to make sure that, there is space for that reluctance to really be fleshed out. So that's definitely coming up.
Yeah. And I saw her as reluctant because she wasn't doing it because she wanted to do it. In her acceptance of doing the things that Vivian wanted, in doing the
trials.
Before the trials, the streaming, of their relationship. When she's going through that, everything was about, well, this will help him progress. This will help him progress. It wasn't about like nothing in her acceptance of that was, I could get used to that. Or it was about, well, he's my partner. And is this what I need to do to support him?
Yeah.
Which told me it's not something I want to do per se. But if it's going to support his goals, then it's something that I can make room for.
I can make myself do it.
That's how I felt about it. So I personally saw the reluctance there.
Yeah.
But that comes with being in a 14, 15-year relationship. Right?
Yeah.
There's been lots of times where I was doing things that I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And he does it at almost every event. He works a full-time job, and I drag him out to events to go sell books. And he's like, I haven't had a day off.
Yeah.
So we do things in our relationships, and when we really love somebody that we don't want to do, but we don't necessarily have it out in the open of, well, I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it for you. Right. Because then that's not actually support. That's manipulation of I have to get something back.
Yeah. And then Marlon
my husky.
There he is.
He finally made noise.
I think that's the first time and the 2 times that I've come over that I've heard him make noise. Anyway. And Marlon sees through everything, right? Like he knows what Nora is doing for him, and he doesn't like that she's compromising herself so much. But they haven't had a conversation about it. And then things blow up, and then they don't get to talk about it. So that's another dynamic that I'm really looking forward to fleshing out.
And they blow up in such an interesting way. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's that after reflection that happens of, sorry, the dogs are making me, they are in the room with my husband. They are being supervised, but it's my imagination. He closed the baby gate and they're crying to get back out because there's people over and new friends. And why are new friends not in the same room as me?
Yes.
So, sorry, anecdote. This happens when you have dogs. So they blow up, everything blows up in an interesting way. And then there's that reflection.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed. I went back to that so easily.
Good job.
But there's that reflection later on of what was said when I wasn't around. What, that really plays into Vivienne was definitely in there meddling and sowing little seeds in people's ears. And so I'm so looking forward to not just exploring the trials that Vivienne puts her through, that correlate with what happens in the myth.
Yeah.
But to explore all those little worms that she stuck in Nora's ear throughout this process of support and in this streaming and showing and sharing your relationship.
And I don't know how much meddling she did yet. I know she meddled, but I also know, I think also going back to the myth again and going back to the way the sisters have a hand in Psyche's insecurity. I think there's also room for the sisters to become villains too, because they lead in the myth. They lead to the falling apart, and so I want to also there's backhanded compliments and just little ways that they don't know that they're tearing her down, but they are. And that's leading, what happens after Marlon walks away. She's gonna start questioning everything, and they're gonna jump in on that. And so Vivian's gonna jump on that too. And so their reluctance really becomes, it becomes big in a big way when she has to go back to Nora or to Vivian and say, okay, let's do it, and and there's also, you know, an internal trial for herself. She's going to have to put her academics aside because she's choosing Marlin. And so that's another thing that I'm looking forward to really diving into as well in Nora's head. Like, how does she make that choice, and what are the conditions that, you know, are met when she has, like, I had quite a few moments when I was writing this where I really wanted to write the scene where she had that conversation with her advisor about her relationship with Marlin, and like what to do, you know, because I really wanted to tap into it. Just there wasn't space in the novella. Yeah. So there is now, once I get this done. So this is a temporary hold in the publishing world. So people know that the story exists, and then I'll take this down and I'll have the full length novel when I get it out, hopefully by April next year.
I'm excited for that. So I just realized we've been here for about 2 hours. How did that happen already?
I don't know.
So we're taking up anyone's time who has done us the honor of watching this. And the dogs are starting to get annoyed that mom is busy and taking up time with their new friend. And so I have no illusions that this is about not seeing me. I know better. I know these dogs. So where can we find your book? How do we get it?
So the Reluctant Star will be on Amazon and KU. So you can get, when it releases on June 5th, you can get it there. I will have printed copies, signed copies on my Shopify account that you can order, and you can pre-order those now if you want. And then I'll send them out to people when I get them. And then the Trouble with Christmas is everywhere. So it's wide distribution. It's also available as an audiobook, wide distribution. So Kobo, Nook, Google Play, Audible, everywhere. And then I have signed copies of that as well. Yay. So yeah. Right. And I have lots of like little merchy stuff and things like that on my website, you know, because I have bookie swag. So
perfect. I also have copies of the anthology, the Dark Fairytales anthology, as well as A Trouble with Christmas that you can find through our Blind Date with a Book, or not. Depends if I send it to you. Got to choose the right genre. You can always put a hint in there. So, you know, and our books support animal rescue efforts in the area by donating back through Saving South Texas, which is how we got our Pitty Murphy. And so what, now that I did my shameless plug, what is the best way to support an indie author outside of buying the book?
Reviewing, giving honest feedback. You can always reach out to me if you ever feel like you didn't like the book. You can message me and tell me. But, you know, writing is important because it gets people out there. It helps share the story. People find it through other people. You know, I'm on Instagram a lot. You can find me there. Yeah. Just
so Instagram reviews, TikTok reviews,
Goodreads, Amazon,
Storygraph, Fable.
You can request a book on Fable if you don't see it, and I think someone requested the Reluctant Star.
Yay!
So yeah,
so it is on Storygraph already, and I've done a review on that, and I will eventually get around to getting a Goodreads account. Yeah, it's just I like Storygraph.
Yeah,
it's such a great one. So, and I can't imagine trying to keep track of two. I can barely remember to update my Storygraph, but these reviews are really, really important to indie authors because they help people know whether they may or may not like the book. They help get the word out there about the author, and they help the authors know what you like so they know more of what to write. But if you are really wanting to support an indie author, review. Buy the books directly from them when you can, and
or just, I mean, obviously buying the books from us directly is great, but also buying on Amazon, like Amazon, we have a love-hate relationship with it because it is the way that we can get our stories out there so easily to everyone, but they're not always kind to us with royalties. So any books purchased there also help, just simply because it helps build
it out there.
Yeah, it builds our reputation on Amazon as a valid or trustworthy
which can
author.
then lead to them looking for you in other spaces and then coming to you directly afterwards.
And it's like I said, it's a love-hate relationship. But without Amazon, it is possible to publish, but Amazon is a big reason that I can publish. So yeah.
So it is what it is sometimes.
Yep.
But I will put all of the places that you can get the Reluctant Star and comments and links and all of those things below. You'll be able to see the husky is going. I kind of am hoping that we can hear this because it's so rare to get him to actually husky. But I'll make it easy to find all of the links. Please follow Loren on Instagram. I'm
on TikTok, Amazon, I have an author's page, Instagram. I have a Facebook page. I'm working on getting a group going.
Threads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all the social places. Please follow Books Brews and Dogs. Please share this. Review this. Review this podcast. It is our first one. And just, have a great day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for spending time with us today.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. It'll be great.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.